A group of 4 friends went on a trekking trip: Greg, Paul, Fiona, and Ruthie. Their passion is to travel across different parts of the world. Crossing distant mountains, they arrived at a breathtaking location at the foothills of the Himalayas and decided to rest there. Suddenly, Paul heard a faint sound of a flute from far away and became entranced by it. Strangely, only Paul could hear the sound, no one else could. As he followed the sound, Paul suddenly fell into a pit. This sudden incident terrified everyone because Paul wasn't making any sound at all. So Greg decided to tie a rope and go down. As he descended into the pit, he was shocked. The place was huge. It couldn't be called a pit anymore, it was more like a cave. As Greg carefully moved forward, he saw Paul sitting cross-legged in front of a giant inhuman skeleton, as if in deep meditation. Greg instantly realized that although the massive skeleton looked somewhat human, it definitely wasn't human. But why was Paul sitting like that? As Greg approached, he heard Paul whispering, "If you touch me, you will die." Paul stared blankly as if under a spell, then suddenly burst into tears, and the next moment, he fell silent again, staring intensely at the skeleton. Greg somehow managed to carry him out of the cave on his shoulders. He kept the whole incident a secret from the girls, because even he couldn't believe what he had just seen. The cold was steadily increasing, the icy wind pierced through their jackets, chilling them to the bone. A little further down the path, Ruthie noticed an abandoned house at the base of the mountain. They decided to spend the night there. Since then, Paul hadn't spoken a single word. He lay like a stone. Strangely, there wasn't a single bruise or injury on his body. Everyone started getting worried. They needed to take him to a hospital as soon as possible. But given the harsh weather, traveling 5 miles to the hospital tonight was nearly impossible. So, they had to stay there for the night. As night fell, the snowfall intensified. Ruthie sat beside Paul. After bringing Paul there, Ruthie had found a small flute in his hand, which she had never seen before. Driven by a sudden curiosity, Ruthie played the flute. Immediately, a strange sound echoed through the air. Ruthie didn't give it much thought. Exhausted, her eyes began to close with sleep. But when Ruthie woke up, she heard footsteps circling the house. However, after a while, the sound faded on its own, so she ignored it. The next morning turned out to be even more terrifying. A massive snowstorm was raging outside. After giving Ruthie some food, 2 of them went outside to try and find a solution. Paul's condition remained unchanged. Ruthie looked out the window and saw someone standing in the snowstorm. When she went out to ask for help, the figure slowly backed away. Then suddenly, it rushed toward her. Frightened, Ruthie ran inside and shut the door. Something began pounding on the door repeatedly. When Ruthie came to her senses, she heard Greg shouting, asking her to open the door. She let them in and told them she had just seen someone. Seeing Ruthie's state, Greg didn't ask further questions. Sadly, they had to spend another night in that place. At the dead of night, a strange scene unfolded. Paul was whispering something into Ruthie's ear. When morning came, Paul was nowhere to be found. Following his footprints in the snow, they found him sitting cross-legged like before, right in front of the bridge, playing the flute. This time Greg couldn't hold back anymore. But when Paul looked at him with blank eyes, Ruthie suddenly stabbed Greg in the back with a knife, and pushed Greg and Fiona off the mountain. Then, after staring at Paul for a while in shock, Ruthie also jumped off the mountain. The scene changes. James, once a detective by profession, now works at a small store. One afternoon, while paying for lunch at a restaurant, he showed an old birthday coupon. The restaurant staff wished him happy birthday. But today wasn't his birthday. Later, James went to meet a teenage girl named Amanda at the park. A major part of James's life was haunted by nightmares. A few years ago, James's family died in a car accident. Since then, he had been blaming himself for the tragedy. Just a few days after that, Amanda's father had also passed away. Amanda had never really had a good relationship with her family, so over time, she began to see James as a guardian figure. Amanda said she practiced a form of meditation to distract her mind from the pains of daily life. According to this meditation, the more people think about a particular entity, the more real and powerful it becomes. James didn't take Amanda's foolish-sounding words seriously. A few days later, James received a call from Amanda's mother, Quell. Amanda had gone missing. James went to Amanda's house with the police and found this written in blood on the mirror: "The empty man made me do it." The police collected some evidence from the scene. The forensic report later revealed that the blood on the mirror wasn't Amanda's, but from some animal. From what James heard, he understood the police weren't really interested in the case. Usually, due to such negligence, the victims are never found. So, James decided to take matters into his own hands. In Amanda's diary, he found a page from the Pontifex Institute, and on the back of it, the word tulpa was written. The diary and the photos on the wall made the mystery even deeper. When James asked Quell, she said that a few days ago Amanda had burst into tears in class, but hadn't told her what was wrong. So, James began questioning Amanda's high school friends one by one. From a girl named Devara, he learned something strange. For the past few days, a story about the empty man had been circulating among their group. At first, it didn't seem like anything serious, but that assumption turned out to be wrong. Because 2 days ago, Amanda, Liza, Meyer, Danken, and Bendon were hanging out in the evening at Rock Bridge. They found an empty bottle lying there, and as a joke, Amanda brought up the legend of the empty man. Amanda explained, if you find an empty bottle in the darkness on a deserted bridge, and you blow into it like a whistle while calling out to the empty man, then he will actually come. On the first day, you'll hear the empty man and start thinking about him. On the second day, he'll follow you. And on the third day, he'll come for you. Everyone blew the whistle into the bottle as a joke and teased Amanda. Amanda sat alone in the middle of the bridge, called out to the empty man, and blew the whistle. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept over them, and an eerie silence fell. At that moment, a sharp whistling sound came from the other end of the bridge. When they felt as if someone was rushing toward them, they panicked and fled from there. The very next day, Devara saw Amanda whispering something into Bendon's ear at the shopping mall. Right after that, Devara became distracted and handed James Bendon's address before leaving. When James visited the homes of Bendon and Liza, he found that both were missing. Inside Liza's house, no one was there. A TV was playing an Egyptian show where someone said, "The god Adam is coming." From Liza's room, James found a prospectus of the Hauntflix Institute. And in the garden, he found the dead body of Liza's pet dog. This disturbed James deeply. Because aside from Devara, all of Amanda's friends were now missing. James then went to the abandoned rock bridge to investigate. There, right in the middle, was the same empty bottle Amanda and her friends had left behind. James blew the whistle using the bottle and stood waiting for a while. Suddenly, the sound of birds and crickets mysteriously stopped. He heard a noise coming from a manhole nearby. When James climbed down to check, he was shocked. All of Amanda's friends' bodies were hanging there. And the wall read, "The empty man made me do it." That evening, when the police arrived, they recovered all the bodies. But James now suspected the Hauntflix Institute more than ever. That night, strange things started happening to Devara. She began having hallucinations, seeing someone trying to kill her. But in reality, Devara ended her own life. What's notable is that the figure she saw before dying resembled the one Ruthie had seen earlier. An officer called James to the station and informed him of Devara's death and another incident. 3 weeks ago, in the town of Maryville, a mother had fed her newborn to street dogs. When asked why, she claimed that the baby kept whispering things into her ear constantly. She, too, had written, "The empty man," on the wall in blood, just like what was found in Devara's bathroom. Back home, James searched on Google and discovered disturbing details about the Hauntflix Society. It's a type of ancient Tibetan secret group, believing in premature practices and multiple strange philosophies. In Egypt, in 1991, the bodies of 6 Hauntflix members were discovered. Initial investigations revealed they had killed each other. And the strangest part? They were attempting to bring a being called Tulpa into reality through rituals. James remembered seeing the word Tulpa in Amanda's diary. The true meaning of Tulpa is a mind-made body. When thought, focus, and time are combined, it's possible to manifest Tulpa in real life. A little while later, Quell suddenly visited James. He gave her emotional support and invited her to stay at his house for the night. In the middle of the night, James suddenly woke up. He felt like someone was walking heavily outside the door. Gathering courage, he stepped outside and saw the front door wide open, but no one was there. The next day, James went to the city's Hauntflix Institute. There, while the leader of the society, Arthur, was giving a lecture, he mentioned the empty man. James requested a personal meeting with Arthur to learn more. Arthur said that the empty man is a type of meditation, or rather, an external manifestation of a shared belief. Just as humans are kept alive by the biosphere and air, human consciousness remains alive through infinite emptiness. The empty man is what helps awaken the subconscious mind in various ways. However, James found all of this irrational and focused more on finding Amanda. James secretly followed a few members and reached their secret meeting room, where he saw several members in deep, strange meditation. Digging deeper into the mystery, James entered an underground passage. There, he saw several members blowing whistles into bottles while calling out to the empty man. But James was caught and thrown out of the place. Outside, he ran into the same member he had asked about Amanda in the conference room. The boy, who had remained silent earlier, now said that Amanda used to come there. However, those who fully dedicate themselves to the cause are sent to a secret training place. So, it's likely that Amanda could be found in the Pontifex camp in the forest off Route 32. Accordingly, James set off to search for Amanda. After reaching the location, he found 2 cabins in the forest. Inside one cabin, he discovered files on Amanda and all her friends, containing detailed information about each of them. But the strangest thing, there was also an empty file labeled with James's name. In the second cabin, James found a collection of Pontifex Society's VIP ritual steps. There, he saw bizarre experiments they had conducted on people. As he kept reviewing everything, evening fell. When he noticed lights flickering deep inside the jungle, he went to check, and witnessed a terrifying sight. Several people were running around a fire, sometimes stopping to chant incantations in unison. At one point, the flames rose straight into the sky. James began to feel dizzy. But regaining composure, when he tried to leave the scene, they all started chasing him. James barely escaped with his life, speeding away in his car. The next day, James submitted the files he had collected to the police and reported the events of the previous night. However, the police instead warned him not to interfere in the investigation. At that point, James realized he would have to take matters into his own hands. So, for self-defense, he collected a gun and some essential items, and warned Quell about the Pontifex Society. Just then, an unknown caller rang, and Quell heard the sound of whispered chanting on the other end. James understood, they were no longer safe. So, he took Quell to a relative's house for safety and promised to bring Amanda back. James then returned home. But in the middle of the night, he suddenly woke up from a nightmare and heard the doorbell ring. Grabbing a bat in his hand, he opened the door and stepped outside, only to be shocked. Right in front of the door lay the same teddy bear from the forest camp. At sunrise, James followed the boy from Pontifex, and saw him secretly bring a few members to St. Louis Hospital in a car. James followed them and saw a man lying in a cabin under medical support, surrounded by all the members who were praying over him. James left the hospital, kidnapped the boy, and questioned him about the patient. The boy revealed that the man was a messenger of outer cosmic forces or outer gods, and the society members were merely receivers. He claimed that things people see during high fevers or déjà vu moments are actually predetermined. Every 1,000 years, an empty man is needed to deliver the message of the outer gods to Earth. As he finished speaking, the boy burst into maniacal laughter, so James left him and went away. That night, he sneaked into the Pontifex Society's archive hall. From the St. Louis manifestation file, he retrieved the medical report of that patient, and found a file about himself. Inside it were photos of his life and family, a detailed record of everything about him, even the birthday coupon he had recently used, and a naked photo of himself. Completely confused, James went straight to St. Louis Hospital and asked the nurse about the patient. She said he had been brought there 23 years ago, and after years of no visitors, recently, many people had started visiting him. She added that someone was still in the room. James entered the patient's cabin, and was shocked to see Amanda taking care of the patient. James immediately called Quell to inform her that Amanda had been found, but strangely, Quell didn't recognize him and hung up. At that moment, Amanda said, "This man is getting weaker. An ordinary human can't contain such immense power. So now a new replacement is needed." And then came the biggest twist, that patient was none other than Paul himself. Amanda explained, the empty man uses human bodies like empty vessels. After 500 years, the empty man possessed Paul. But now, they can't afford to wait that long anymore. So due to the urgency, they need a new body, and that is you, James. In reality, James wasn't even human. He was a tulpa, a thought form they had created just 3 days ago. Using a tulpa as a vessel for the empty man was a new experiment for them. When James refused to believe this, Amanda reminded him that just 3 days ago, on the 7th, restaurant staff celebrated his birthday. All his memories, his guilt over losing his family, were all artificially created by them. The Pontifex Society typically targeted people who were mentally vulnerable to make them their members. That's why the god Adam chose Paul from the entire group to bring forth his negative self into the world, because the cuts on Paul's hand symbolized his mental fragility. On the other hand, James blamed himself for the death of his family. In the very final scene of the movie, after James becomes possessed, he kills Paul, because now, he himself is the empty man. How did you like today's story of the empty man? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next video.